Now transitioning a bit, I kind of did one of the big things I want to talk about in this podcast. Obviously, was last week I went to go see Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer, and I wanted to do a quick review on the movie itself, my overall kind of impressions on it, and do my Witmer's critiques segment for Oppenheimer, which I saw last Thursday, pretty much the night before it premiered. But moving on to the my critique on the movie itself. So going on how I usually do these critiques. So starting off, the overall, it's pretty much, if you don't know who Robert Oppenheimer was, he was the person who came up with, during the Manhattan Project, coming up with the atomic bomb. And this movie kind of is almost two movies in one, in a sense. And that there's one aspect of the movie where you're seeing Oppenheimer and them coming up with the bomb itself, his kind of early on kind of career, and how he got into the project of the Manhattan Project, and how they chose him to lead it. They kind of talked a little bit about his kind of political thinking of being a little bit more on the communism side, as you know, World War II is coming around, and communism and Cold War and stuff like that. Outside of that, they after that, for a little, probably like 15-20 minutes, they then get into splitting the atom and actually going to Los Alamos and actually all these different places where they actually tested the bomb and put it together and everything. And then there's the other aspect of the movie where you see Robert Downey Jr. come in, and there's pretty much two different hearings going on with Cillian Murphy's Oppenheimer, and with Strauss and Robert Downey Jr. having a hearing to be the next cabinet member for Eisenhower, I think it was. And then pretty much at that point, what it feels like is whenever they're talking, it pretty much is them, when they're in these things, kind of talking about how the bomb making kind of went and everything. So that's kind of the basic of what the movie is, without going into too much spoilers. And obviously, I'm trying to be too spoiler free here, but there may be a thing here and there that may comes up that's a little spoiler heavy. So obviously, if you're watching this, either you had already seen it, or if you're going to go see it, just listen with caution. Obviously, it is based on a true story, true events, and everything. So obviously, you could look this stuff up, because it's obviously something that's happened. But if you want to go in fresh eyes, then I'd probably maybe not continue on. But again, I'm going to try to not be too spoiler, but there's going to be spoilers that have come up here and there during this. But overall, I think it was a very, very great movie. It wasn't a perfect movie, but it was a really great movie. But the things that made it great were obviously the acting in it. There is no doubt in my mind that when it comes to award season, this movie is going to get nominated for Best Picture. And Cillian Murphy, Robert Downey Jr., Emily Blunt, and even, I'm sure, Matt Damon will probably all be nominated from this movie. And even for cinematography and editing and score and everything, they're going to have a lot of nominations for when it comes to the award seasons and everything. So, and it shows too, because there's moments in this movie, especially when you get after like the bomb, after they show the bomb goes off and everything, and that part of the movie is essentially done at that point, because they tested the bomb, it worked and everything, and then they really hammer in on the hearings that are going on, and that's where you really see Robert Downey Jr. and Emily Blunt's characters, to me, really show off at that point, and how great they were at portraying these characters, and even Cillian Murphy too, because at times between that and again some of the cinematography with how Christopher Nolan was directing everything, he did a great job at getting Oppenheimer's kind of mental kind of realization of what had happened or what he's created and what's happened afterwards, and his dueling kind of dilemma of what he created and everything. So, like, there's two scenes in particular that stand out to me in this regard. There's the one scene shortly after the bomb goes off and they're celebrating, and he's in that almost like auditorium, gym, whatever you want to call it. And there's the group of people who helped create it, and they're all celebrating and everything. And Oppenheimer is giving this speech of how they were able to be successful and everything. And during it, it's also very eerie because at times when they're cheering, you don't hear them cheering. It's very quiet at times. You'll hear them cheer afterwards, but then it very clearly is showing his inner dilemma of what he's created. Another part that was great in terms of the cinematography is when the bomb itself goes off, because the bomb goes off and you hear no explosion or anything. It's probably good in terms of the movie, maybe like 4 or 5 minutes after it, where it's when they're all done celebrating because it had just gone off, where you then hear the bomb, the boom from the bomb itself. Those are two aspects of the cinematography that's great. Another aspect is essentially during kind of what I would have considered the climax is where Oppenheimer is getting drilled during this hearing to essentially renegotiate his clearance. Essentially, is what's going on, and at this point, he is being berated by question after question after question, and during it, the screen's kind of going almost going white and everything, and he is to the boiling point of almost kind of blowing up and everything. So at that point, you realize, oh, like everything that's crumbling down on him, he's trying so hard not to kind of blow up during this hearing going on, and then at some point he just essentially goes off. But then you also see that with Robert Downey Jr. and how Strauss essentially, how his hearing kind of went and everything, and kind of the backstory and how he kind of orchestrated a lot of what sort of happened and the after effects and everything. And one of the things that happened that they're kind of worried about during this time, obviously, is the communism scare and the fear that wherever you're at, there's some communists trying to get spies and everything, whether it was in government, like Congress or anything like that. And what came out is that there was a spy during the Manhattan Project, and that's why Russia was able to, or the USSR at the time, was able to come up with their bomb kind of shortly after we did, because of kind of the information they took from the Manhattan Project from the spy. So the thing with Oppenheimer is they're trying to figure out if he has communist ties and everything, and if he's sympathetic towards them. So that's a lot of what kind of happens in the second part of what the story is. But yeah, that's kind of a basic kind of overview of what the movie was and aspects of the movie that I thought were kind of great. As an overall kind of scale, if I had to give a rating, and like I do most of these movie ratings, go similar to Rotten Tomatoes, 0 to 100 kind of rating. Rotten Tomatoes, the tomato score, they gave it a 94. Audience score, that was 93. On IMDb, they gave it an 8.8 out of 10. And I'm somewhere kind of in the middle, where I think it was a 90. That's probably where I'd put it. The issues that I kind of have with it was, because it was a 3-hour movie, and I think it was probably maybe 15, 20 minutes, a little too long in that aspect. And also I thought, because one thing is, it wasn't that it was kind of hard to follow. It was just start at the beginning of the movie. It's kind of hard to follow what was going on because they're going back and forth with so many different things, like Oppenheimer's kind of upcoming as a professor and physics and science and everything, to Robert Downey Jr. hiring him, and then you see them in these hearings, and there's just a lot of going back and forth of what's going on until you kind of get, like, once you're at like the 15, 20 minute part, like, oh, okay, I kind of understand what's going on now. And then the other thing too is I feel like they went a little too much on kind of the political beliefs early on Oppenheimer. I get why they did it. I completely understand why they did it. His ex-girlfriend and his wife were previously in the Communist Party and everything, and early on he's talking about unionizing the physics department at his the university he's teaching at. But there's a lot in that where I'm just like, I just felt like it was a little too much in that aspect in the movie. Again, there's not a lot that I didn't love about it, which is why I think it was a 90. It's a great movie. There's a lot of great parts to it, but the thing I would say, it's like I said at the beginning of this, it's a great movie, but not a perfect movie, which is why I give it a 90. Because if you're getting closer to like the 100 or 99 or that kind of aspect, even like a 95 or higher, I'm expecting it to be more of like a perfect movie. And the things that I don't love is the fact that I felt like it was a little too long a little bit, and at times at the beginning it was a little too hard to follow just before you kind of understood what was going on. And just at the beginning there was just a lot that it didn't feel like needed to be in it, which I feel like is kind of a Christopher Nolan thing. And the thing that makes him a great director is that he puts so much detail in his movies, but because of that his movies tend to be a little bit on the longer side because of it. But I feel like if there's still those moments in each one of his movies, and I think even small parts here and there, that you could probably take out and maybe make it like a little bit shorter, but still have still as good of a movie as it was. But yeah, that's kind of my overall kind of thinking of Oppenheimer. Let me know below your kind of thoughts of the movie. Do you think it was as good as everyone says it was? I think it is. Did you love the performance? What specific aspect of the movie did you like or did you not like? Let me know in the comments below.